Hey everybody, just a really quick announcement before we get started. This weekend I'm going to try and have a couple Wendigo farm help streams going, probably Saturday, probably Sunday as well. This video should be going up on Friday, February 24th. The idea is going to be that we can have the Wendigo streams running on the 25th and the 26th until the downtime on the 27th before Lightfall. Drop by if you're interested in trying to farm out a Wendigo. I'll be trying to get some runs done at least for 3 hours each on each of those days. So if you want to drop by and get a couple GM runs in to try and get a Wendigo and you need help with it, come join chat. We'll have people from chat running the whole time. Thank you everybody for watching the video, and let's get on with it. Alright, so today's video is going to be a little shorter than the last one. We're just going to look at a couple different combinations of using an exotic sniper with a Wendigo grenade launcher with a few different roles. The main idea is that, Wendigo's the weapon everybody's trying to farm for right now, so if we can try to see what the best thing to pair it with might be useful going into Lightfall. Don't think of this as much as a completely hard test video like the last two, but kind of just looking at some theory-crafted combinations between the two for different perks, different damage values, etc. There'll be some math here, but it's not the hard comparisons that the last two videos were. If you watched my last video, you'll probably remember that I had some numbers for grenade launchers by themselves in there, and I did also adjust those values for the 20% buff against bosses coming in Lightfall. If you want some more of that info, go and check that one out, but this one's going to be a little different, but I think it's important to know that I will be using some of the numbers from that video here. Basically here, I'm just going to go over the numbers from a few combos of Wendigo and two exotic snipers, specifically Cloudstrike and Izanagi's Burden, with a couple different roles that I want to try out. The reason that I want to do this is because there are a couple of different roles here that I think pair with each quite well. For Izanagi's Burden, I paired a Wendigo with auto-loading holster and explosive light, although one with full court could be good too if you have enough distance to get the travel time. Full court does not actually work based on distance, works on time in the air, but you do need distance to maximize time in the air, so Wendigo with full court could be good with Izanagi's as well. For the one that I paired with Cloudstrike, I wanted to try something a little different. For this one, I used a Wendigo that had auto-loading and Cascade Point, and I do want to talk more about Cascade Point in a minute, although all of these grenade launchers that I tested did have spike grenades, and important to note, while spike grenades does not necessarily buff explosive lights damage as much, it does buff everything after you're out of explosive light stacks, and for consistency's sake, and I love consistency in these tests, trying to make sure that nothing changes between them except the weapons and perks being tested, that the spike grenades were consistent across every single one. For the rest of the methods, it'll be similar to the last couple videos. The first thing is that we used Well of Radiance, which is a plus 25% outgoing damage, and a Divinity, which is a plus 15% incoming damage on the boss it's on. And we used this against our usual test dummy of Avarok the Covetous, the final boss of Grasp of Avarice. Now for the math. I did go over this in more detail in the last two videos, so if you want a more detailed breakdown of Cloudstrike, Wendigo, and Izanagi's Burden, go watch those. But just so you know, for Wendigo, every grenade buffed by explosive light currently deals 62,079 damage, and every non-buff grenade deals 43,494. Factoring in the 20% buff to heavy grenade launchers in Lightfall, those values will change to 52,193 for normal non-buffed shots, and shots buffed by explosive light will now hit for 74,495. For our two snipers that we'll be testing, Cloudstrike's single shot damage is 18,152, and each lightning storm you create does 29,831 damage, and you can get at most 3 lightning storms per magazine. Each shot with Izanagi's Burden deals 120,476, but with Lightfall's buff to kinetic weapons, Izanagi's will be getting about a 10% buff, and that will now result in 132,523 damage per shot, of course with Honed Edge times 4 and the Catalyst active. We'll break down the math based on these projected numbers in a minute, but I also want to do a couple test damage phases with each, and that'll be in some of the background gameplay here. We're going to do rotations of each combo until we're completely out of grenades, and that's kind of what we're going to test there. If there's ammo left over for each sniper, I'll mention it, but it will be left out of the calculation. Each damage rotation calculation will be using the post-Lightfall values that I just mentioned. Starting with the more well-known of the two combos, we'll look at Izanagi's Burden with an auto-loading and explosive light Wendigo. This will also work with any other auto-loading heavy GLs, so if you have an interference with a similar role like auto-loading and full court, you can also use that. Won't matter that much. The technique here is to swap to your Wendigo to reload cancel your honed edge ×4 reload animation, but after you've already loaded the single shot, this bypasses the lockout before you can fire again with Izanagi's Burden. Then you'll fire the Wendigo that you just switched to all the 6 shots, and then you'll swap back to your Izanagi's, fire, do the reload again, once again canceling it by switching to Wendigo. This rotation should give you enough time for auto-loading holster to kick in on the grenade launcher, and it lets you get some damage in during the time that you'd otherwise be reloading by firing that Izanagi's shot. Like in the other videos, I used a frame counter to calculate the time here, and I timed the combo from the time it took me to scope in with Izanagi's, fire, reload my honed edge, cancel that animation by switching to my grenade launcher, and then fire the 6 shots out of my grenade launcher and swap back to Izanagi's. The time it took for one full rotation was about 6.37 seconds. For the first 6 shots of your GL, all buffed by Explosive Light, the full rotation, including the Izanagi's damage, will deal 579,493 damage total. Based on our time value from earlier, we have a single rotation damage per second of 90,972. For each subsequent rotation, your grenade launcher is doing 52,193 per hit. Every full rotation after that first one does 445,681 total per rotation, with a damage per second of 69,965. The other combo I used was a Cloudstrike with its Catalyst and a Wendigo with Cascade Point and once again auto-loading holster. Cascade Point will buff the fire rate, but it won't buff the damage at all. As a result, the Explosive Light and Full Court Wendigos are going to have more damage total than Cascade Point, but Cascade Point's significant buff to fire rate is enough to potentially make a meaningful difference in terms of damage per second. I chose to pair it with Cloudstrike because Cloudstrike has several really positive things going for it. First, it tests better than pretty much every other sniper rifle in the game. It has some of the highest total damage of any special weapon in the game, especially after the linear fusion rifle nerfs in Lightfall. And while having solid DPS and good ammo economy at the same time, Cloudstrike is actually going to be quite decent going into Lightfall. Cloudstrike also has a very fast fire rate, which is important for Cascade Point, because according to Light.gg, the way Cascade Point works is that it charges at different rates for different weapons. For snipers, it's 50% per shot, so it should theoretically be done after 2 headshots. However, I feel like I actually got the best overall results here by emptying the whole Cloudstrike mag and then swapping. A full rotation here results in Cloudstrike doing 271,013 damage, while the Wendigo will do 313,158 damage, for a total in one rotation of 584,171. Your full rotation takes about 8.2 seconds for a damage per second of 71,240. Izanagi's with an Explosive Light Wendigo is going to be better for the first rotation, but it is going to fall down to being about the same from the second rotation onwards. Cloudstrike could also be paired with a Wendigo using either Full Court or Explosive Light, which also increases the total damage, but it will slightly reduce the DPS that you're getting because Cascade Point will not be increasing the fire rate when you switch to a damage perk like Explosive Light. The most notable thing that I want to point out here is that both these combos are pretty solid, so if you're using a GL paired with a sniper rifle, then either is arguably a decent choice. I'd say if you wanted more overall DPS, then the Izanagi's combo is arguably better, but if you want more total damage, go with Cloudstrike. You can also get a bit more burst DPS out of Cloudstrike while sacrificing some total damage by just firing 3 or 4 shots to get one Thundercloud and then dumping a whole mag out of your Cascade Point grenade launcher, and then once you're completely out of grenades, you could just use Cloudstrike like normal to get the back end of the total damage. You have options with the Cloudstrike. The Izanagi's Burden combo is kind of locked into the same rhythm that I showed earlier, but Cloudstrike is a bit more flexible. The other thing to think about is that Izanagi's Burden's full reserve damage, after adjusting for Lightfall, is only going to do a total of 729,837, but Cloudstrike's full reserve is going to do 1,011,444. The other thing that I think is important to think about is what happens if you potentially can't get any heavy ammo to drop. Well, Izanagi's Burden kind of struggles by itself as a DPS weapon because of the long reload time not being able to be affected by reload speed, and the lockout after loading a honed edge shot before you can fire again. Cloudstrike doesn't have these issues because it works completely fine with reload speed effects, and as a solo weapon, while it's obviously not the best in the game, it's a lot better than Izanagi's Burden if it's the only weapon you have. And again, like I said, you gotta think, what happens if you can't get any ammo to drop reliably? Either of them I think are still perfectly fine choices though. I also think that Izanagi's Burden with rockets may still be really good. but I just wanted to compare grenade launchers for this video, or even still just using linear fusion rifles, because something to think about if you've seen my last 2 videos is that these values are close to, but still less than, the DPS on a bait and switch Cataclysmic even after it gets nerfed. But like I said, I went over that more detail in the last couple videos, so watch that if you want more about that. The heavy weapons video has a lot of the numbers for Cataclysmic going into Lightfall, including the 15% nerf. However, guys, that's all I have for this today, so if you like what I do, a like, subscribe, and a share, immensely appreciated as always. Also, follow me on Twitch down below if you want. That's where I streamed a lot of the Wendigo farming, and I'm probably going to have some Wendigo help streams going on this weekend. If you're interested, get in here, try and get a couple GM runs in to possibly get yourself a Wendigo. And yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Later, everybody.